So one thing that really bothered me initially about using Vim is just that when I go to open up a file like this init file here for my Vim configuration, you can see the cursor right now is in the top left corner of the file. It's on line 1, it's in column 1. And of course, if I'm working on this and I jump down a bit here and maybe I'm working on line 46 here, maybe I'm over in the middle of this line. For whatever reason, I might want to exit out here, so I quit out here. And then the next time I open this back up, of course, it jumps me back to the first line in the first column. And so I've lost my place. And now I have to page down again, try and figure out where exactly was I at. And then I need to come over here and jump back to the spot I was working on. So that's a huge hassle. And it turns out one of the easiest things you can do in terms of personalizing what I like to think of as a workspace or a session inside of Vim is just to exploit the fact that Vim keeps track of the last spot that you're at, the last cursor position. It stores that information. And so you can use that then when you open Vim back up to restore your cursor position. And so to do this here, I need to edit another part of my configuration. I've got this set up over here. I got this commented out right now just so I could show you what it looks like without this. And so now if I come down here to this line, uncomment this. So basically, when I start up Vim, I'm setting up an automatic command that will trigger on this event, which is a buffer read post for any file type here. And basically, I'm going to look at the line that was saved. I'm going to make sure it's still a valid line number. In other words, is it greater than 1 here? And is it also less than the total number of lines in the file? And if that's the case, then I'll go ahead and restore it. And don't worry about the mechanism here. All you need to know right here is when you're executing this particular command, it's restoring the cursor position. And so now, in this file, let's just say I jump over to the X over on execute. All right, so now if I want to exit out of here, I can quit out of everything. Now when I open this back up, I'm going to open to a different file, but notice I'm actually on that line I was just editing for that file. And if I come back to my early Lua file here that I was just working on, there you go. You can see the cursor is back on the exact cursor position that I was at when I exited out of this particular file. And now if you want to know how this works here, so essentially what we have marks inside of Vim here. And if I run the marks command in the lower left here, you can see I get a listing of the marks. And the one we're looking for is the one with the double quote here. And you can see right here, the line number and the column number of the mark are stored. That's true for all types of marks. In this case, this is the mark for the last time you exited out of this particular file. And so you can see the line number is 13 and the column number is 81 here. It also shows the text. That's not as important though. And so that means the little Vim script snippet here is going to look at, it's going to retrieve the line number from that. It'll get back 13. Of course, that's greater than 1. And then it gets that again here, checks to make sure it's less than the total line count of the file. And if you want to see what this looks like here, you can run the echo command down below. You can put in the actual function call here. You can see what that comes back, 64, which is the total line count of this file. And so if we are within the bounds of the file, then we're going to go ahead and execute here a command using the execute command. Interesting. Kind of like an eval command in other languages. We're going to build up a string of what to execute here, and we're going to execute a normal mode command. So this is the normal command. You can actually run this if you want down here with normal. And then we're going to run the equivalent of a G, a backtick, and a double quote. When I run that now, you can see it jumps the cursor back to that very first position. And if I come up a few lines here, if I were to run that command again, it jumps me back to the same position. And of course, that's a normal mode command, which means if I were to up arrow a few times here, I could, of course, just type G, backtick, and double quote, and I can do the same thing. Oh, and one little caveat here, be careful. There's another variant of this if you don't use a backtick and you just use a single quote here. So if I replace the backtick with a single quote, if I go ahead and save all of that here, note that my cursor is on that normal mode command over on the right there. If I quit out, open things back up, jump back to that early Lua file, now you can see I have restored the cursor position for the line, but you can see instead of being on the column that I was on before, it's actually on the very first column that has a non-blank character. So that's a slight alteration that you can use if you don't want to restore the column as well. You can just restore the line number. Another way to test this here, you can just use G, backtick, and double quote. You can see it jumps me over to the column that I was on. Or you can do G, single quote, and double quote, and that'll jump me back to the first non-blank character. So I definitely recommend making this change to your Vim startup files. This alone obviates most of the frustration I have, and that's just being able to come back and pick up where I left off. And of course, there are extensions beyond this that can do things like managing workspaces and sessions. I'll get into that in later videos. Right now, this is a good first step if you don't have something like this at all. Put this into your Vim configuration files.